Here's what I learned after raising over $100 million from accredited investors online. Most business owners think their main problem is that they don't have enough capital. They think, if I only had a few extra 100,000 or a few extra million, then I could scale my company. They curse the market conditions or their cash flow constraints. Ironically, not having the self-awareness to realize that 99% of their business, in fact, does not need to scale that quickly, nor should they scale that quickly. But even so, they're convinced that it's not their fault. It's not their business model, it's not their leadership team, nor is it a lack of product market fit, nor is it a fact that they don't really have any major differentiation in the market or they don't have referrals. No, their problem, they think, is I need money. And their proposed solution, more money, a cudgel, when realistically they need a sword. But let's say that that's not you. Let's say you actually need to raise money. For example, you have a huge multifamily project, or your cost of acquiring a customer is higher than your average order value, but much lower than your lifetime value. Or if you're a first mover in an emerging market, or if you've got purchase orders but just need to scale the manufacturing, or you've nailed your franchise model and now need to scale, or you've got a world-changing patent but need to create the MVP. These are legit reasons to raise money. But even if this is you, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. So here are the 4 pitfalls to avoid before you begin raising capital. Pitfall number 1, being self-obsessed. If you are raising capital, please, dear God, do not start your pitch by talking about how you dropped out of college, or you started your first business in your garage, or how you went to Harvard, or you're passionate about disrupting blah, blah, blah industry. Let's be candid. No one cares about you, at least not in the beginning. No one cares about your life's purpose or your company or your history. They have their own family and they have their own purpose and they have their own problems. Random angel investors and venture capitalists just don't really care. Mission and values, those can be a cherry on top, but it's not the foundation. You may think that your ideas are super valuable and everything you've created is profound and you're going to change the world and you started with your why and you're mission driven, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, deep down, it's not as important as you think. I've talked about this in another lesson. Investors want to invest in something they're proud of. Sure, but that's the 4th most important reason they invest. Without the first 3, your mission is irrelevant. Namely, investors only care about these 4 things, and in this order is what matters. 1, they care about how much money they're going to make. 2, what's the likelihood that they're going to make the money, which is basically what's the downside risk. Then 3, how fast are they going to get a return? Translation, how liquid is the investment? Then 4, this is where your mission comes into play. Can they take pride in the investment? Is it exciting? Will this give them social status? Can they brag about the investment to their friends? These are the 4 variables all investors care about. And guess what? None of them have to do with you or your story or your history. To not admit this, at best, lacks self-awareness, and at worst, is narcissistic. So if you want to get investors, stop talking about yourself. Talk about the investor. Pitfall number 2, half-assing your pro forma. The second mistake is not having super detailed pro forma projections and tables, which starts with having a detailed accounting history of everything that's happened so far, even if you're a startup. You should keep track of even the smallest expenses like buying a domain name, hiring someone to create your logo, or a down payment on a property or a lease. No matter what it is, you have to keep track of it. Because if you're not going to be precise when it's easy, when all you have to worry about is keeping track of tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, what are you going to do with an investor's money? What will you do when you have extra millions or tens of millions of dollars? People think, oh, I'll change when I have a lot of money. But that's not the case, and investors know that. If you're shitty with a little bit of money, you're going to be even shittier with a lot of money. So first, you need this detailed accounting of everything that's already happened. But then you need to project those numbers into the future using some basic assumptions. For example, how much is your cost per acquisition going to be in a year and why? How did you come up with this number? What is going to be your average order value? What is going to be your break-even point? What about the lifetime value of your customer? The churn rate, the upsell rate, the referral rate, your cost of goods sold, your payroll, your operational costs. Or if you're in real estate, what is your occupancy rate going to be? What's the local market going to do? Why is it going to do that? Et cetera, et cetera. You may not know the answers to all of these questions right away. Of course you don't know, but you should, before asking any investor's money, at least have a reason why you're assuming those numbers. Otherwise, any sophisticated investor will see right through you when they look at your made-up pro forma. And since they'll know that your assumptions are just garbage fluff, they will therefore rightfully assume that everything you say is garbage fluff. And therefore they can't trust you, and therefore they're not going to invest in you. So you need to have 5-year projections that cover nearly every detail of your business. If you say that in year 3, payroll is going to go up by 25%, you need to explain that. Is it because you're going to hire a CFO or a CMO, for example? But that also begs the question, why do you have to hire them in year 3 and not in year 2? And what are their salaries going to be? You say it's 110K, but why not 115? The point is, unless you know your numbers down to the penny, you're not not taking your business seriously. And by the way, of course, all of these numbers are assumptions. So of course, nothing will be accurate in the real world once the business gets going. But that doesn't change the fact that you better have a good answer to why did you make these assumptions in the first place? Well, I don't know yet is a fine answer if you're Elon Musk or you sold your last company for $50 million, because your entire pitch can be bet on me. I'm a winner. But if you're a normal entrepreneur like everyone else, trust me, is an incredibly naive and bad answer. You have to be able to at least play the thought experiment of your business out for 5 years. For investors, this is an incredibly helpful filter. If you can't play the thought experiment out for 5 years, you probably don't know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, then no one should invest in you. And therefore, they won't. Pitfall number 3, not having your contract ready. I remember once at an event, there was a guy who had a good idea and was pitching it to everyone, asking for feedback about his pitch, which that's a good idea. I'm still friends with him to this day, by the way. And he has one of the largest podcasts in the world. He's a super high-level entrepreneur. He's great. And this was also an incredibly filtered room. It was at one of Dan Fleischman's event, which if you don't know who Dan Fleischman is, he's one of the premier entrepreneurs and investors of our generation. It cost tens of thousands of dollars to be in that room. So everyone naturally was an accredited investor. And here's the thing, everyone, including myself, we were all impressed with the idea. Everyone was like, yeah, sounds like a great idea. How do I sign up? Where do I invest? And you can probably guess where this went wrong. He didn't have the contract ready. And this is a classic error. He should have had the contract ready, or at least a letter of intent, and even printed it out so people could have just signed it on the spot. There's a big fat opportunity killing mistake. He probably could have raised $500,000 just in that room. And I told him that in the room, by the way. I said, why don't you have the contracts in your book bag? Why don't you have them in a folder ready to go? We laughed about it, and he's fine. Obviously, he's a monster entrepreneur. But that's even further to my point. This not being ready mistake happens a lot more often than you think. Many entrepreneurs say that they want to raise money, but they don't have their SEC exemptions ready. They don't have an escrow account ready, and they don't have their contract established. They say, I'm going to raise a debt round. But when you ask them what the percentage is going to be, or the specifics of the terms, or the payout, or any of those details, they don't have a clear answer. They say, I'm still figuring that out. Or they say they're going to raise an equity round, but they don't know what type of shares, they don't know if there are any warrants, they don't know what the valuation is exactly, or how to justify their valuation. They might not even know what a sales note is. They might not even know what a safe note is. They're just not educated enough in the process, nor prepared. So here's the deal, as is the case with most of life, talk is cheap. If you're taking your business seriously and you really want to raise capital to scale your company and do something good for the world, you got to educate yourself. You must know everything that has to do with contracts, and preferably hire a lawyer to make sure that all your ducks are in a row. If your contract is not high level or not professional, investors are going to see through it. They're going to ask their lawyers, and then their lawyers are going to tell them, this really isn't that legit. It has holes in it. It's unprofessional. It doesn't seem like they know what they're doing. I wouldn't recommend investing in this company. The point here is, unless you have a contract, you're not raising money. You're just not serious. For example, if I want to start a t-shirt store, I'm not serious about my t-shirt store unless, guess what? I have t-shirts. If I don't have the t-shirts, and I don't have a website, and I don't have a payment method or a bank account so that you can pay me, I don't have a t-shirt business. The same goes for your capital raise. Until you have the contract and a way for me to sign the contract and a way for me to pay you money, there's no capital raise. Imagine running into a whale, an investor whale, randomly at an event or even a coffee shop, and they're like, I just sold my house for $5 million. I'll invest $50,000 in your company right now, but I'm only going to do it if I can invest right now. What if you don't have the contract ready at that exact moment? It's over. You got to be ready. Pitfall number 4, not answering objections. Why would someone say no to investing in your offer? Unless you know the exact answers, you're not ready to raise money. While writing copy for sales funnels, digital marketers often make a list of every single objection that their avatar customer or their client might have. And then they address these objections in the FAQ section or during the sales call or even in the video sales letter. And there's a reason why they do this. If you don't answer literally every single objection, the sale usually won't go through. And it's no different for an investor. You must answer all of their questions and all of their objections. You have to be ready for all of these questions. Go through the thought experiment, do it, and come up with 20 or 30 reasons why someone would say no to you. And answer all of these throughout your funnel and during your pitch and on your deck. Some of these objections will be, why would I trust you? What's your track record? How can I make sure I'm going to get a return on my investment? Why should I invest now? Why are you building this company now? Who are your competitors? What are my guarantees? And many, many, many more. For example, maybe I trust you in your idea, but I don't like the market conditions right now. How are you going to answer that objection? Or what if I think your competitors are better than you? Convince me why the market will choose you instead of your competitors. Or what if the total addressable market is too small? It's a good idea, but it's local. It's not scalable. Why would I invest? Maybe you're spending $400,000 to build a software that's going to be disrupted by AI in a few months, and you have to explain or actually fix that objection. Or maybe your product is too complicated. For example, I'd rather invest in a pizza truck where you get all the ingredients from one local store than an Asian sushi sushi Mexican hybrid restaurant where you need at least 150 ingredients from 17 different countries and 14 experts to pull off this restaurant. The complexity of logistics matters. So how do you answer that objection? If it's too complicated, I may not want to invest, unless you convince me otherwise with a really good reason. And here's the crazy thing. A realization that you may have after brainstorming your objections, you might realize that you shouldn't start the company or that you need to change your business model entirely. And that's okay. That's good. It's great. Maybe you'll decide to add more diverse products, or your funnel or your offer maybe should offer a cheaper option. Maybe you need to test product market fit more, or create an MVP, or maybe you need to see which marketing channels will actually help you scale before you raise money. Maybe you need to find cheaper labor options or get a more experienced list of vendors. So the thought experiment is for raising capital, yes, but more importantly and fundamentally, but by going through this thought experiment, you're actually going to improve your business. This is how you will know for sure that your company should exist at all. And then if it exists, do you really need to raise money? You need to understand that we're often talking about millions of dollars here. This is real money that belongs to real people who have families and dreams and worries and hopes. So at the end of the day, if they have one single objection, if you leave one question unanswered, they are not going to invest in your business. So with that said, let's wrap up. What is the punchline? If you don't want your raise to fail, make sure that you aren't too self-obsessed. Make sure you have a detailed pro forma that you're projecting into the future in detail, that your contract is ready, and that you answer every single objection the potential investor will have before you ever reach out to them. The truth is that you probably don't need to raise money, but if you do, follow these 4 steps. If you do, you'll stand a much better chance of getting the funding that you need to start or to scale your business. I hope that helps. Thanks for listening. Till next time. Cheers.